And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. From Gamer Forever, who asked the question, what is the Pokemon team of Lurch, the loyal butler of the Addams family? I've done Gomez, Morticia, Wednesday, and Pugsley, if I'm not mistaken. So now it's time to get the Lurch. Oh, and Cousin It, also. I think the only ones I really have left are like Mama Adams and, or Mama, I should say. Yeah, I think I'm almost done with the entire Addams family. But Lurch, the loyal Frankenstein-esque looking butler. Lurch, I didn't really have a hard time making a team. It was more that Lurch doesn't have a lot of unique qualities to make a team with. So let me show the team and I'll explain my reasoning. First off, Indini, I think, is the number one Mon, or his first starting Mon, because Indini is basically kind of designed off of a butler. And he is the butler of the Addams family. So I felt that made sense. But Lurch is also known for his monster, like he's physically very strong and very powerful. So I knew I needed a couple big, powerful mon on the team. I decided to go with Golurk. It's slow, it's bulky, it's got a lot of attack power, and it's a ghost type, which works with the Macabre sense out of the Addams family itself. Next up, though, I also decided to go with Pangoro. It's a dark type, which again goes at least a little bit with the macabre attitude of the Addams family, but also it has at least a little resemblance to Lurch with those eyes. If I move Golurk here out of the way real quick, yeah, those like raccoon just bags under the eyes look. Also, Pangoro, despite being a tough guy, is actually very kind with like smaller Pokemon and kind of protects them. And Lurch is very protective of the Addams children, so it makes sense that this kind of mon could show up on his team, I think. Now, afterwards, we have another dark type, Mandibuzz. Why Mandibuzz? Well, it was a little touch and go. I knew I wanted another dark type to, again, go with a little bit of the sense of the macabre. And a buzzard that, breaks bones, picks them clean. I like that too. But it's also kind of got a bit of a maid vibe to it. The skirt and the feathers do give it a maid-like design, which, again, Lurch is kind of a maid to the Addams family and kind of a caretaker. And a buzzard/vulture does work well for, again, the macabre nature of the Addams family. Speaking of macabre, you can't have macabre without spiders to some degree, but I went with Galvantula. Now, why Galvantula? Well, the reason for that is Lurch apparently is deceptively fast. And Galvantula, being an electric spider, has a speed of 108. So you add that with the Lurch sometimes showing up before the bell is even rung, and you get I think a good mix of the two. And adds a little bit of variety on the team. And last but not least, Ambipom. Now, why Ambipom? Well, it's a good helper for helping pick weeds in the garden, get things that are necessary for, cooking, for the house when he goes for errands. But also, and this came to me when I remembered him playing the piano in the Addams Family animated movies. Everybody hurts sometimes. Well, I mean, who wouldn't want a compatriot to a four-armed monkey? Because he technically has two tails or separate arms, aiding you on the piano. I think that works out fairly well, in my opinion. So that leaves the team in a weird level of balance. It's both ×2 weak and ×2 strong in the dark with your psychic and your ghost type, but also with your bug and your fighting type. It's ×2 weak to ice with your ground and your dark type. It's ×2 weak to flying with your bug type and your fighting type. It's ×2 weak to fairy with the two dark types. It's ×2 weak to fighting with the fighting dark type, as well as the normal type. And it's ×2 weak to rock with both the bug and the flying type. However, where this team does excel is that it's ×2 strong against grass, with your flying and your bug type. It's ×2 strong against dark, which we already talked about. ×2 strong against rock with your ground and your fighting type. It's ×2 strong against steel with your fighting and your ground type again. It's ×3 strong against ghost with having a ghost type on the team, obviously. Two dark types. It's ×2 strong against fighting with the flying and the electric, the flying and the psychic type with Indini. And then it's ×5 strong against Psychic, with the only issue being that Ambipom isn't strong against anything, being a normal type. But it does get an immunity to Ghost. So that does kind of help cancel it out a bit. So that leaves the question on how well this team would do in an actual playthrough of any of the games. Indini would probably struggle a little with Brock, but not to any strong degree. If I quickly find the attacks that Indini can learn early on, because, again, the highest I'll ever take a level of any single Pokemon on the team, or all the Pokemon, is maybe 2 levels above what the Aces is. Because, in theory, if you just maxed out the level of anything, of course it would beat the gym. So that's, we got to keep it at least realistic to the gym experience here, or to the game experience. So, with Indini's moveset, if the damn site would like to update it all, I believe it does have Confusion, which is an early move for a lot of Psychic types early on. But we'll find out momentarily in just a minute. All right, Indini, the male Indini, to be precise. Where are you? There you are. Jeez. All right, yeah, the male Indini, to be exact, has slightly higher physical attack stats than the female version does. And I believe they all have the same. Yeah, no, and he can learn Inner Focus, where the other one learns own tempo. Otherwise, they all have the same. So his physical stats are slightly better than the female of the species' physical stats, but her special stats outmatch his special stats, usually. Actually, it seems to be that the male version is actually just a bit more combat or like attack oriented to begin with. So I must have missed Indini being in Scarlet and Violet, but Indini is in fact in Scarlet and Violet. Come on, give me the move list here. For some whatever reason, the site Cerebi is being very slow to act at the moment. All right, fine. I guess I'm just gonna have to do this. But regardless, Indini being able to learn any sort of Psychic move early on helps it in any of the early gyms, because its really only weaknesses are Bug and Dark, and admittedly the Bug gym is it does show up twice as an early route gym in both Paldea and in Kalos. So there is that has to be dealt with. But with that said, it's not that big of a deal. With Brock, it's rock. with Brock, it's rock. But no, legitimately, with Brock, it's rock, which don't normally have good special defenses. So it's not that big of a concern, I think. Okay, here we go. Indini's movesets. Stored Power, which, that's fine. It can learn Disarming Voice, and it can learn Psybeam, which would be within the level cap that it can learn Psybeam level 15, which is within the level cap of the limitations I provide here. So that means it should be able to handle Brock no problem. You should be able to handle Misty. Honestly, you really wouldn't have any issues throughout most of the gym runs. Golett, which would still be a Golett, not a Golurk, is going to be great against Surge. You'll have Volibee, I believe it is, the pre-evolution of Mandibuzz, to help fight off Erica. Pangoro also you should have or get close to having at that point. By the way, with Pangoro, you might be saying, well, how come he has a Pangoro and not any other Dark type? You need a Dark type to evolve Pangoro. You would, in whatever game you're playing, you would just get the Dark type on the team, evolve the Pangoro, and then take it off the team for this team. Honestly, you're not going to struggle until, ironically, Giovanni, who's not usually a problem, but the problem here is that, A, you've got rock types on that team, but B, you actually do not have a very good answer for ground types on this team, which is what Giovanni ultimately specializes in. Because he also has both the Nidos, he has a Dugtrio, he has a Rhyhorn, and, a Golem, if I'm not mistaken. Point being, he's a ground type specialist. No, Kangaskhan, that's what he has. And there's no good answer on this team for that. Now, granted, by the time you get to Giovanni, you would more or less have a fully evolved team here. So Mandibuzz at least would be immune to ground type moves. But they would be touch and go. You do have the physical powerhouse that is Golurk, and you do have a type advantage against the rock types of his team with Pangoro. So it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be difficult. You wouldn't struggle with Lorelei or Bruno. I don't even think you'd struggle with Agatha. You have 2 dark types and a ghost type on the team. Even though Golurk is exceptionally slow, it is a tank and is a powerhouse. So it's not impossible, to say the least. It's not until you get the Lance and Blue that you struggle with the problems. This team has no answer for dragon types at all. Indini doesn't even naturally learn any fairy moves. So it's hard, and there aren't a lot of non-Fairymon that naturally learn fairy moves, usually. I believe, like, say, Milotic learns Disarming Voice, and you can have some other non-Fairymon learn Disarming Voice, but naturally speaking, like, if I were to look at, like, say, TMs or TRs for Indini, does it learn any fairy moves? Yes, it does. In fact, Disarming Voice is one of them. Of course, that is level for the female version, so I'll take that for what it's worth. And in fact, it does actually have Disarming Voice, now they say it, in Dini. I mislooked at the level 10 move it learns. It is Disarming Voice it does get. But that being said, as I said, yeah, the special attack of, the male is the Indini species is the more offensive, whereas the female is the more defensive. But even with Disarming Voice, Indini at 105 for special is good. It's not going to really be able to do much against all of his dragons. I mean, it's got a 95 speed stat, so that's good. But the problem is he's got an Aerodactyl on the team, which that thing's not going to be able to handle very well. And the minute you take down Dragonair, he's going to bring out the Aerodactyl, which you have at least a bug, but it's a counter. It's a double-edged sword because the bug is weak to the rock aspect of that. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's very difficult, which leads you into blue, which he starts with Pidgeot. It would be difficult. The Pidgeot's probably is going to outspeed you, if I'm not mistaken. Or at a very minimum, it's close to outspeeding you. Either way, you're not taking the Pidgeot down in one hit, despite the fact that it's not the strongest bird in the world. It's powerful. Pidgeots aren't, like, weak. They're just not overly strong. They're your standard or Route 1 bird. So, take that for what that's worth. Regardless, you'd still then have to deal with the Alakazam, which you got to bring one of your dark types in immediately to handle that thing. Actually, no, there's no way you're outspeeding the Pidgeot, because Pidgeot has 121 speed and 135 special. Oh no, I'm looking at Mega Pidgeot. Pidgeot has 101 speed, so you barely outspeed that thing. Actually, no, it barely outspeeds you. Sorry, 95 speed? No, Pidgeot outspeeds you. I'm sorry. Which means, that Pidgeot's probably taking down that Indini, which means you then got to go probably into Galvantula. And then he's probably counteracting your Galvantula. He's probably bringing out one of the Rhydon or one of his fire. If he doesn't have Charizard, it's going to be Arcanine, which then that thing's going down. So then you've got to deal with Rhydon. Let's say you're dealing with Rhydon. You can deal with that with Pangoro. Now, after that, he does not have a good answer for Pangoro. He doesn't have a type-specific advantage against Pangoro. Pangoro, specifically speaking, is weak mostly to flying, fairy, and fighting, which he doesn't have at that point. He's not going to bring out the Alakazam. But he very well might bring out, say, the Gyarados or the Lap, or even his starter. And if he brings out, say, Charizard, it does have a type advantage. I can't remember if it learns any flying moves. It might have Air Slash at that point. Pangoro probably goes down, which means now you're kind of left with Ambipom, Golurk, and you're left with Mandibuzz. Golurk probably is the best bet because it will be resistant to the majority of your, or is strong against the majority of the remaining types. If it brings out Alakazam, it's strong against the Psychic type. If it is Charizard, it's strong against the Fire type with the Ground typing, or at least resistant to. Well, actually, no, it's not. But regardless, Golurk probably is the best bet, but yeah. And then after that, it just gets more complicated. I don't think it's impossible to beat blue. It's a maybe. It's a hard maybe. What's not a hard maybe is Johto. Starting out quickly, Bugsy, you beat Faulkner, no problem. Bugsy, I think you're kind of in a stalemate with. Why do I think that? Well, you have a Psychic type which is completely weak to your which is completely weak to bug types. And the only other thing you have at this point would be a Golett, which Bug is also resistant to ground. So any ground type moves you have on Golett at the moment is no good. And Golett doesn't evolve until level 33. So you would be going basically the entire playthrough, going all the way to Claire until you get to Golurk. As it stands, you could Shadow Punch is something you'd have. Astonish, Pound, Defense Curl, and Mud Slap. I would say this, it's not impossible, especially with Shadow Punch, and especially because even Golett, despite being, pretty little guy, 50 defense and a 74 attack would be enough to probably survive. Bugsy would be difficult. Whitney is ironically not that difficult because at this point you have Indini, which it's psychic normal, but at least it's conducive to special damage. You have Golett, which is immune to any normal moves unless the Milk Tank has Scrappy. But then you have Pangoro, or at least Pancham at this point, which is a fighting type mon, which is advantageous for you because, I mean, it's apart in the normal game, the only fighting type you'd be lucky to get is Heracross at that point, or I think you trade for a Machop somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I could be misremembering that. But that being said, oh yeah, Pancham, there we go. What the moves say does Pancham learn early on? Let's find out, shall we? And Pancham has 82 attack, so it's got good attack to start with. And it's not even all that slow, if I remember correctly. Let's find out here real quick. It's got a speed stat of 4. Okay, it's 43. It's not the fastest in the world. But that being said, by the time we get all the way to... And it has to evolve a level 32 with a dark type or plus. So you're not going to see it evolve until at minimum Chuck's Gym. But that being said, at around level 20-ish, you'd have Arm Thrust and Workup on your side. If you can get one Workup going, which increases your attack stats, you're honestly not doing... And you can survive one hit, say, from the Milk Tank's rock rollout, which is a rock type, which you resist. It also has Circle Throw, and Low Sweep. You should honestly be able to take down that team. It would be difficult, but you could do it. Then you'd honestly have a pretty clear run throughout the entirety of Gen. Morty wouldn't be a problem, neither would Chuck or Jasmine or even Price. It's Claire that's the problem. Now, luckily, you would have a fully evolved Golurk at this point, as well as a fully evolved pretty much everything else, actually. Let me double check Mandybuzz's evolution stat real quick here. I need to write... That's something I need to write in the future while I'm doing these, is what level these things evolve at. Let me see here now. So, dark. Okay, there we go. Mandibuzz, what level does that evolve at? Because I'll be honest, if it evolves at like the same level as, say, Braviary does, then you're not seeing that Mandibuzz for a long, long time. It is a beefy mon. Unlike Braviary, which is the more attacking one, Mandibuzz is a beefy tank. It evolves at level 54. Dear God. It evolved, that makes no goddamn sense. Gen 5 I love Gen 5, I really do, but Gen 5 should not have made evolutions that big. It just shouldn't have. Anyway, yeah, Claire would be a problem because there's too many water moves on that team for Golurk to be effective. Kingdra's water is protected by the dragon, so it's going to resist the electric. I'm going to be honest, you may stop at Claire. You may. If you can get past Claire, you'd make it to Lance, and then you're done. Like, that is the fully realized dragon team of Sinnoh, and you're just done. Or Sinnoh, of Johto. When it comes to Hoenn, honestly, you can get through the entirety of the gyms without difficulty. Because you got a psychic type that has Psybeam early on to deal with Chuck. You'll be able to deal with Roxanne, and a ghost type that's immune to fighting. Pancham should be trying to deal with Watson is Steel Electric, let's be honest. Honestly, the rest of the gym should be no problem, and even most of the Elite Four is not a big issue until Dragon comes into play, and Drake pretty much just axes off your team. Like, as fast as Galvantula is, a Flygon Earthquake is going to take it down. As, beefy as Mandibuzz is, it's not going to do any good against electric attacks. It's just not, this is not a good team matchup wise against Drake. Drake very well could have been the champion. That's how good his team is. In Sinnoh, honestly, I'm not sure you get past. Well, you might get past Rourke. Now that I really look at this again and reevaluated Indini's speed specifically, you probably could get past Rourke just using side beams and disarming voices. You probably could even survive one hit before you go down. So you'd be able to survive, and in which case then you got to deal with Gardenia, which Golet's going down hard. It's a ground ghost type. So then it's really just trying to take down Gardenia. And if you can get side beams off to deal with the Rose Raid, you should be fine. Honestly, then after that, the level gap really increases. You should actually have Pangoro at that point, and Indini can put in a lot of work towards Maylene. Or conversely, Fantina, you'll have a dark type at that point, so you should be able to manage. All the other gyms should be relatively fine. It's once you get to the Elite Four that you're kind of in trouble. I would not even go so far as to say kind of. You are in trouble. Why? Because Aaron alone has a dark poison type, which means your psychic and your ground type or your ghost type are screwed. He's got a fighting bug type, so that means again your psychic and your Pangoro now are screwed. He's got Beautify and Dustox on the team and Combi, which are 3 bug flying types, or at least 2 bug flying types and a bug poison type, if I remember correctly. Which means he's kind of got the majority of your team covered. And that's not even dealing with Bertha, who, while yes, you're somewhat resistant to ground on some level, and you got 1 immunity. She's also got rock types like Golem and Sudowoodo on the team. Yeah, I don't think you ever make it to Cynthia, who you couldn't beat either. So yeah, that's a no for Sinnoh. I also think it's just a straight out no for a Unova. Like, I don't think you get past Lisa. Or at least, I think you get past the first gym, no problem. And in Black and White 2, the second gym without too much difficulty. But with Lenora, that Watchog, I believe, knows Crunch, which means both your Mon are done. Like, just no, not happening. So you don't get past Lenora. And even hypothetically you did, you're not getting past Lisa, because you have, she has Emolgas, which are going to electric and flying your team out of existence. Your Golurk goes down hard, fast with Aerial Ace. Same with your Pancham. And then your Volibee just gets electrified, which leaves you only with Indini, which is not strong enough to take on the whole team. So it's kind of just a done at that point. What about Kalos? You'd actually immediately struggle with Grant. Golurk is so slow that you are in for a problem, because he has Auroras, which is an ice type, with Frigorate, which means the takedown does ice damage. And as attack specific as the male Indini is, it can only do so much. Like, both Auroras and Tyrant are going to be doing a lot more damage to it. Plus, Tyrant has Bite, so you're in trouble. Yes, it's going to outspeed and get the first hit in, but I don't think it's enough to take down the Tyrant, in which case you're in trouble because the Tyrant has Strong Jaw as well. So, no, I think you're probably stopped at Grant. And if you're not stopped at Grant, well, you're definitely stopped later on by, I think Karina also is a bit of a problem. Because, actually, no, Karina's not the problem. Why did I write Karina down here? There's a problem. Karina's not a problem. Ramos is a problem. Because, again, you'll have Pangoro at this time. You're not going to really have anything strong against her. Even the Volibee is not going to be really good. You'll still only have a Golett, so that's a problem. And he's a grass-type gym leader, so, yeah. I don't think you get past Grant, to be honest. And then in Galar, you'll get past Milo, but you'll struggle with Nessa. You'll get past Kofu. Honestly, though, it doesn't matter if you can get through the remainder of the gyms. Raihan, I think, is where you stop. Dragon and Ground and Rock and Steel all together, mixed together, as a double battle is just not something you're really prepped for on this team. Gavantula would go down immediately. Golurk, Indini probably would be the next one down. And even hypothetically, if you could get past them all, Leon is going to wreck shop on this team. Again, the Dragon Ball alone has an answer for nearly everything on this team. So it's not looking good for you here. Well, what about finally Paldea? I think you're stuck at Katie. because she's a bug-type gym leader with 3 Mon that can have the bug typing. 2 of them do have the bug typing, and then the other one can terrestrialize into the bug typing. So I think you're stuck right there because Fairy's not even strong against bug. Bug resists it. So even the disarming voice you can learn doesn't matter here. Hypothetically, if you could get past him, then you still got to deal with Brassius, who has grass types, which means your Golett is going down quick. And you got to still deal with like life absorption shenanigans from him. And if you could get all the way through the remaining gyms, which I don't think you could. Iono actually isn't that big of an issue. Surprisingly, it's Kabu who is. The water type gym leader is the problem for a change, because you have Golett and nothing really strong against his guys. But more to the point, what I was trying to say is, once you get to the Elite Four, Rika, even though she's slow, it's got beefy Mon. You don't really have a good answer for ground types. You only have one solid answer for steel types, because again, Golurk is slow as sin. Then you got to deal with Larry's flying types. It's no go. The only region this team even stands a shot in is the original Kanto. That's it. So that's my thoughts. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But this is the team I have for Lurch. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.